What a perfect fall day. Good morning. Welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am PJF. It's chilly. You've seen, right, the statistics that there's a bazillion firearms being purchased in the United States the last few months. I mean, off the charts. Used to say Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, was the best firearms salesman America ever had. You know, he was coming into office and everybody was afraid he was going to ban guns, and they just went crazy. And then the same thing happened with Obama. When he came in, lots of people bought guns ahead of his election, ahead of his assuming office, because they just knew that when he took over, guns would be banned. But the latest gun purchases is not that, is it? Nobody thinks Trump's going to ban their guns. He banned bump stocks. Yeah, whatever. It's because people feel what's coming, right? And so there's a lot. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you're somebody who didn't have a firearm and you just decided it might be a good time for me to get a firearm. And so a lot of people are going out there buying firearms. And I thought I would talk today about the different modes of storing said firearms. How does one properly store a firearm? Oh, it's a chicken. And then I'll go over some ways I've seen, some things I've done. I'm not going to tell you what I do now, OPSEC bro, but I'll go over some things I've done in the past or seen others do. And if nothing else, to spur thought and perhaps discussion on your part on what you think. But could be a new idea, either that I come out with or that somebody here comments on. So let's get to it. I believe the NRA recommends that one store one's firearms locked up, separate from the ammo. I'm pretty sure on that, confident. I've definitely seen that before. Store your firearms locked up, separate from the ammo. Well, the people who are buying these firearms, I submit, of late, the majority of those buying the firearms of late, are doing so because they fear social disorder. They fear crime, rising crime with, the way we're treating police, and they're all quitting and stuff. And so having your firearm locked up separate from the ammo is a problem, because when seconds count, it will take you only minutes to access and load your firearm, right? So I think that's a good thing to do for firearms that are in what I call medium to long-term storage. In other words, you have no intent of using this firearm right now should something bad happen. Your deer rifle, you're not deer hunting, so your deer rifle, sure, go ahead and lock it up and keep it separate from the ammo if that's what floats your boat. That's not necessarily a bad idea. I'll tell you what is a horrible idea is trigger locks on a loaded gun. Trigger locks are fraught with peril. When you have a loaded gun and you're playing with something around the trigger, it's not good. It makes me cringe. You see people have those various kinds of gun safes that one can buy. There's the one where you measure your fingers and it just fits your hand. Well, that's good until your spouse needs to access it. And supposedly it keeps little kids from opening it. Maybe. Children is a real thing. Children are a real thing. If you've read my book, and if you haven't, shame on you. And here comes a shameless plug, Survivalist Family, Prepared Americans for a Strong America by Joe Fox, available everywhere. I talk about gun safety in there a little bit. I was raised in a house that at one time had loaded submachine guns hanging on the wall, and handguns hanging on the wall for easy access. At other times, had long arms underneath the master bed, underneath my parents' bed, and handguns in a couple drawers, loaded. I never touched them. Never touched them. Because in my house, there was this thing called discipline. Now, What my parents did is they said, do not touch these. If you do, severe repercussions will occur. However, if you ever want to see one, just let us know. We'll take it out. We'll go over safety with you, and you can handle it. Took away kind of the mystery of it, and that's how we raised our kids. But initially, no parent's an experienced parent the first time around. With my son, we had the house gun at the time was a 357. And he was not strong enough. He could barely lift the thing up. I'm talking like 2-3 years old. When they're crawling around and you really can't, you don't know where they are all the time. So you don't really want your Glock with a hair trigger underneath the pillow on the couch at that point, right? We kept a 357. And he couldn't pull the trigger on it. He could barely lift the gun up. And we used to keep it, and I know a lot of other people who do this too, on top of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Why? Because my wife was spent most of her time in and around the kitchen. The refrigerator was too high for my son to climb up on. He hadn't yet figured out how to pull the drawers out and climb up onto the counter kind of thing. And so that was a decent place to have a loaded, ready-to-go gun. I used to keep a 45 on my bedstead, and back in the day, I did not carry a holster at home. I would change into my home clothes, and I didn't carry a gun, although I carried one at work, and I would just decock the 45. For those of you who don't know, just go with it. The hammer would be down on a loaded chamber, sitting on my gun on my nightstand. But to make the 45 work, my little toddler would have had to cock the gun, take the grip safety off, and it was just too complicated for him to make that thing go. And so we felt good about that. Wanted to get a Glock. My wife had a PPKS at the time. We no longer have those. And she stored her PPKS hammer down. It was a double action. And again, our son couldn't pull the trigger on it. Wanted to trade her up for a Glock, but the reason I didn't is because a Glock has no safety, despite what they say, and the trigger's not that hard, and we were concerned that a toddler could manipulate that and make it go bang. And so we didn't get a Glock, and we're not Israelis. They don't believe in having an empty chamber underneath the handgun. The handgun is to use right now, and having to go cheek cheek first, it only takes a split second. Yeah, no, we don't do that. So considerations there. I was at work one day, cubicle land, and a single mom who worked there was having a conversation with a couple coworkers. Most of the coworkers there were mildly pro-gun. They weren't gun nuts, but they were conservative. And she wasn't. And she was making some kind of noise about properly storing handguns with ammo. And she's like, well, I don't care if people have them. I think she did. But, as long as they're locked up and separate from the ammunition. And I went, well, that's not very helpful, because I just walked into the conversation. And she goes, well, if there's children in the home. She kept trying to back up a little bit because she didn't want to be seen as that person. And I said, well, and I looked at my watch. I said, my 14-year-old daughter right now is home alone. And I guarantee you she has a loaded Glock 19 within arm's reach. She was aghast. And back then, my daughter was wrestling, so I knew exactly how much she weighed. She weighed 103 pounds. And I said, hey, she's a 103-pound girl. What is she going to do if somebody my size kicks in the front door while I'm not there? Wagah! Ain't happening. That'll work just fine. And she did. We trained our kids from a very early age, as I was trained, to properly, safely use firearms and not misuse them. They were never toys. They were never cool things. And I was fine with that. So that's one way. Another thing, I used to, for years, have the bedroom shotgun. And the way I kept the shotgun loaded was rounds in the magazine, nothing in the chamber, but it was cocked. So it's like on an empty chamber, rounds in the magazine. So in order to make that shotgun go bang, one would have to depress the slide release, rack the slide, which then puts a round in the chamber, take it off safe, and pull the trigger. It's a lot of different steps for a little kid to do. Not a teenager, not a 10-year-old, but, you know, a toddler. It's too much to do. And so that's how I kept that in there. Because a little toddler can manipulate a safety and pull a trigger, right? A little toddler might be able to, but probably not rack the slide and put another one. Probably not, but that's how we kept it. So that's a way to store a firearm like that. Okay, let's think of some other ways. Lots of ways. Master bedroom closet. That's where lots of people hide their gun, right? That's where criminals go first, is the master bedroom closet. I don't think that's a great place. But think about this. You go shopping, you go down the street, you go over to the neighbors to a barbecue. You really don't want your house looking like an arms room, right? Because if some criminal does kick in your door, walk in your door, climb through a window, whatever, you don't want them going, oh, I'll take that, and I'll take that. Oh, and this is good. Oh, I have too many to carry. So you don't want your firearms like in a rack in the den underneath the deer head, right? You know, the mounted deer with your like firearms there. I don't think that's smart to do that, because of just a quick walk-in robbery, that they'll take them. So they need to be at least hidden fairly well in your house. I'll leave that up to you how you do that. You know, I watched all the kung fu movies, and I've watched a lot of Japanese old, like black and white, the ninja movies and the samurai movies, and I love those houses where they have the board opens up and you can pull the samurai sword out, or the sais are, you know, in there hidden. I think those are cool ideas. But had a friend who had a gun safe. He spent a lot of money for it. I was around when he was considering and then purchased it at work. I mean, you know, we talked about it at work. And he had a robbery at his house. And they know from all this evidence that they spent about 15 minutes inside his house. That's it. And they took all of his guns. And, you know, he had a goodly number of firearms. And I'm like, didn't you just get a safe? He's like, yeah, the keys were in it. It was the kind of safe that you could also open with keys if you like just locked it a certain way. And the keys were in the safe. And they took all his guns except the plant gun. That's what they called it. And in their house, they had a bunch of shelves with books and knickknacks and stuff on, and they had this dried flower arrangement up high, and they had a handgun up in that, so the kids wouldn't get it, and criminals didn't find that one. That's the only one they didn't find, because all the rest were dutifully locked in the safe with the keys in it. That's no bueno, man. That's just not good. Eggs in a basket. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. Even if you have the Fort Knox Super Duty concreted into the floor safe, I wouldn't put all my guns in that safe, right? Think about that. If you have firearms that you don't intend on using for a while, there's nothing wrong with caching them. There's many videos on caching. Basically, make a PVC tube, use some desiccant and oil, put your guns in there, cap it off, and bury them somewhere. Even if it's just 6 feet out in front of your, out in the backyard, just bury it. Like in this, you could just bury it right there. Who's going to find it? Now, sure, if law enforcement's coming for you, they'll find it, but nobody else is. Something to think about. They're not all in one place should something horrible happen to or in your house. So that's a way. What about you? How do your friends store firearms? Right? You got them in safes. You got them just laying around. Oh, I got a gun. I've had single friends, no single or without children. I've known couples that did this too, that had guns all over their house. Okay, they have no kids there. Under the pillow where they always sit, on the couch, around the corner right here in the broom closet, leaned up over here. Every room had loaded firearms in it. So, no matter where they were, they could access it. I think your two biggest threats for having loaded guns laying around the house are, number one, kids, whether yours or somebody else's. Now, here's the thing. Once all my kids were probably 7 years old, we quit hiding, we had guns out. But when other kids came over, we had to collect all the guns and put them else, because your kids are well trained, but you don't know about little Sally and Bobby, right? You don't know how they're trained with firearms. And so when we had kids come over, we knew where the guns were in various places in the house. We'd go gather them all, put them in the master bedroom. We would just lay them on the bed. And I have always, except here, no need to. But every house we've lived in, even if it was a rental, I've taken the doorknob off the master bedroom. I used to store it under my dresser so I could replace it when we left. And we had this locking door set, like a cheaper front door set, locking set. And I would replace the doorknob with that, so we had a locking key entry into the master bedroom. Could you kick the door? Absolutely. It's a hollow core door. It wasn't for that. It was to keep honest people honest, keep babysitters out, keep kids out, keep visitors out, that kind of thing. And we would just lay all the guns on the master bedroom, and then when people left, we'd put them away before we went to bed, where they went. So kids visiting, or your kids if you haven't raised them correctly, and thieves coming into your house. That's what you got to protect from. Another thing is with handguns, and I do it now, and I don't even have kids in the house, is I wear my handgun all the time. You can't take it. When I go to bed, it sits on my nightstand. When I get up and put my pants on, I stick it in my holster. No big deal. I always have it. I always have access to it. It's not laying around. I had a friend whose son was a little bit iffy, and latchkey kid. Dad would go to work, and son would come home from school and be home, for a couple hours before Dad got home. And this dad carried a gun in a holster at work. Where'd that cat come from? And had a shotgun that he used for a home defense gun. Well, he had a pattern. He would come home from work. He had the gun safe keys on his big key ring, because he had a lot of things to do at work. Open it up, take his shotgun out, fully loaded, fully ready to go, lock the gun safe, go put it next to his bed. In the morning when he got up, he'd take his shotgun, lock it up in the safe, and go. So he was always home when the shotgun was available. That was a good move. Yeah, here's the deal. Bottom line, Bigfoot knocking on a tree. Sorry, I just heard something out there. You have to have access to your defensive firearm. It has to be ready to go in a fairly expeditious manner. And when someone just kicked in your front door and you hear the back sliding glass door glass smash in, you're not going to be in a very calm frame of mind to go unlock this safe, unlock that safe, start loading your gun. They're already running up the stairs at that point. Yeah, you got to have it accessible. But you don't want to cause a problem for your children or other children, and you don't want it to get stolen if you go out of the house for 15 minutes or an hour or whatever and didn't then properly secure it. So you're going to have to come up with some plans for your guns. And if you have a lot of guns, you're going to have, various plans. If you just have one handgun, my biggest recommendation is carry it all the time on your body, holster of whatever kind works for you. Carry it. Then it's not laying around. If you have multiple guns, you should figure out what you're going to do about them so that they're safe from the two threats of theft and children. Or stupid adults. I mean, I don't know what kind of people you hang out with. All the people I hang out with are very gun savvy. No one's going to pick up somebody else's gun and start, hey, what kind of gun is this? Or they're just not. But I don't know who you hang out with. Some thoughts, some ideas. Think about it. If you have any questions, put them down below. We'll see where we go. Other people here can answer it. But the bottom line is you don't just get a gun and think everything's good. You do have to responsibly store it and have it ready for use. All right. I'll see you out there.